This is what I'm going to speak about, something regarding the good practices and experiences to be considered in the definition of geospatial data. I would like us to speak a little bit about the issues that we have detected in many places of the country. And it's something that has been said in many occasions, in many conferences, in many fora, and it seems that the scenario is not, it's gruesome. It has to do with climate change. Hurricanes will be more and more often. They will be more and more intense. And this is something that we as a developing country have to very frequently face. We have low resilience, and this brings as a result that the succession of disasters in the environment will bring this as a result. There are about 30,000 million pesos, 30 billion pesos that have to be allocated for the reconstruction of highways and infrastructure. And on top of that, we need to use and generate new infrastructure. We need to generate or create new school, new health center, and also to make some repairs. And this is a problem that we have faced, and we have been concerned about them in the last years, and we call it the popcorn phenomena. If you would be so kind so as to see the slides, in 1972, Playa del Carmen was practically a port, Fisher's Port. By 2000, look at the image, fourth image, and see the growth of the territory, and in only 4 years, see how much it grew. In 2 more years, 2006, which is the last image, look at how big Playa del Carmen is. We have to work with this problem. Cities with growth rate of more than 45%, cities that have the highest growth rate in the world. And this is the scenario that we have to face, and with which we have to resolve some of the problems, daily problems regarding planning, management and territory, urban development, etc. We'll see a little bit of what happens in some of the municipality, or let's say rich municipalities, which are places where they have a great capacity or great income. These places are very touristic, and this is why they have this important data. They have a great, they are a great income source. They have the visit of foreign tourism, and we have one of the most important departments that should exist in the municipality, which are the disaster departments. I know nothing about technology, but well, looking at the pictures, these are the workstations, and just look at the systems that they have, ventilation system, air cooling system. It's basic information for measurements. They have, for instance, this technology, which is works on MS2, but I feel that in cadastre you have to use some other type of technologies. And it seems to me that this is a map, this is a zoom of the map, and this is where you do the updating processes. You see how quickly this cartography is updated. It's a 3D cartography update. I believe that this is the geodatabase or data repository. There's someone that knows it very, very well, and they call it the Oracle. I wonder why. And well, just have a look at the pictures. And actually, this is the core of many of the very important elements that we have to consider in our territory, which are the lands. I think this one over here was a virus that got rid of a great amount of information. And you can see here a set of files. Well, each one of the elements, you can see the description of the lands, their attributes, and you can see the degradation of the data by different processes. We would have to see what happened here. We can see the geometry here. This is a polygon, and we can see that they are working with artificial vision. And this is the case of a rich municipality. imagine how it is in the poor areas. We have some data here. Let's look at the big picture. These are information collected by Coneval, and I feel that one of the biggest problems that we have to consider in the policies of access, use, distribution, dissemination, etc. of geospatial data are here. Look, in brown, we have approximately 1,200 municipalities that are classified as poor. And look how these municipalities that have great rates of or great percentage of poverty have the greatest natural resources. This is where we have the greatest biodiversity, where we have the geological structures with a lot of steel, etc., etc. So we have elements from the environment, from the natural geography that are important to know, to take care of, to organize, etc. But on the other side, the players, the local players, are not prepared. They do not have enough infrastructure to do so, to channel all these elements from a perspective of implementing geospatial technology to improve our living conditions. Some more examples: look at extreme poverty, look at the municipalities where there is the greatest concentration of people in poverty. And this is where we're having the biggest growth on the cities. This is the picture, and some of the problems, sometimes we realize that the urban stain is already in a natural reserve, etc. I'm going to skip some of the slides, and I believe that this is something that we have seen and witnessed day after day, day in, day out. We travel all over the country, and we know that Google Alert has been the tool or de facto tool to make use of some of the elements. So what is the problem? Well, many important decisions are being made on this. And we're not saying that Google Earth is not working, but we need to define exactly in the policies which will be the limits, the restrictions, the pros and cons of all of this, of the use of Google Earth. We know that there are some gaps of plus, minus 2-3 meters, etc. Sometimes we don't know how all these pictures are. For instance, these are projects of dwellings that from these images we can take the coordinates, and from these coordinates we will develop all the dwellings. And so for sure this is something that you have already heard, but well, that brings some problems. It strikes our attention, this type of images where you have this type of treatments where they are integrated with radar images to try to see below the sky or the clouds. This is Chetumal, year 2006. And if you look at it, 2006, this one is 2003, and the next one is 2006. And if you look at this, this image was taken by to make decisions. And something that is important, did you know that the federal participation of the fraction 33, which seems that is going to disappear, one of the very important elements is the information on population, and this is important to get the economical contribution. And look at how in 3 years we see how overnight we see the appearance of a neighborhood. And maybe at that time it was needed to say, well, we have grown so much that we need now to for you to consider a modification on the contribution of the data, etc. The information is very clear. INEGI made a census on 2006, which is the green line. On year 2000, I'm sorry, and the blue line indicates information collected in 2005. And look at this. This was the area of study. and look at what happened in only 3 years. And this is what we need to do as a part of the policies of access, use, and distribution of spatial data to be able to exploit and use information created and collected by INEGI, for instance, when conducting different projects. And this is something that we need to do little by little. And the idea is very clear with this type of ideas. I can count how many dwellings we find. We can implement a methodology. I'm just grading it here in a very simple manner, and we can do some samples with some level of certainty for the statistic. We can determine the number of inhabitants per dwelling, and we can estimate that, and we can get some data of the population with the capacity of updating it. And we need this information for decision making. And something that is important about these images is that some areas in Chetumal are or undergo floodings, and these are exactly the areas that undergo this or have to face these floodings. And this is what we have to consider when drawing policies. As you see, the problem is very complex. We have a lot of information and knowledge, geospatial knowledge, but it's not homogeneous. And the product is, the maps, the cartography, etc., do not have the detail required for decision making, and I believe that this is something that we have to do. We need to generate cartography that have a lot of information, that require information, including local communities and square kilometers, etc. There are a lot of confusion on the cartographic information that is being created today. We have some actual or current cartography or mapping, but it's very, very expensive to create new ones. Imagine how much it would cost to fly a plane around a city like Tulum. It would be more than 1 million pesos. So that's something that happens given time, given the administration system or administrative system. All of these problems become very, very complex. Having actual mappings for analysis and diagnosis is something that we need to have, we need to foster, we need to encourage. It's just like a doctor. If I don't have the X-ray, if I don't have the current actual X-rays, I cannot make any decision. And sometimes we use X-rays or tomographies 8-year-old, 10, 15-year-old. Just to give you an example, something that we see in the municipal atlas regarding risk. I'm gonna yet skip some more slides, and let's speak about the good practices and experiences that could be followed for these policies. Number one, the implementation or use of geospatial technology and intelligence is key to resolve territorial problems and to encourage sustainable development. This slide speaks of the geospatial intelligence, which is actually the capacity to know the past, capture the present, and as Dan Germon said, to understand the trends and relationship to evaluate or assess the future. If we know what is going to happen, how we want to plan our future, then we are generating the appropriate levels of geospatial intelligence. IDE or SDG, which are the strategies to use, distribute, store, etc., geospatial information. Well, there is not enough work done. I'm not speaking federally or at the regional state. I'm speaking more locally, but it's really nothing what is being done. And I believe that this is something that is pretty new and something that we need to do. We have an example. I like to show this example a lot. It's a diagram that illustrates very well each and every one of the elements that have to be put together, developed, etc., to have a geospatial data infrastructure. And this is something that we're trying to do locally at a federal level, but locally we are seeing that this is not being done. And locally they're facing many problems. Several years ago, when I worked at the SIG in Quintana Roo, we launched a project on informational geographic information. Unfortunately, with time, this project did not get the momentum needed, and we like to speak about this project because sometimes the good examples of problems we've witnesses or face, it's not about only technology, it is about the place where you're conducting all your projects. And moving on and skipping some slides, I think that this is something that is of the utmost important locally, the philosophy of free data to enable the conversion of information in knowledge, in massive knowledge or massive use of data. We have so many areas with forestal projects that need data. Many projects, many areas need data. There is a huge amount of data that is being produced at the federal level. And so we need to work on that. And quickly, a very interesting sentence that we found, or when you ask a municipality why you are giving data to a consultant to make touristic data maps, the response was very clear. And I think this is something that is happening in the Canarian island, and the response is easy. Well, it cost a great amount of money to come up with a map, and of course there are many institutions that are coming up with maps to give information to tourists and regarding safety issues, etc., etc. And when tourists go to Canarias, they know that there are many great resources, and this is how we have this vicious cycle. Some years ago, we made a project to generate maps, spatial maps, and I believe that this was a very good experience. Building capacities to have human capital. Well, this is evident, more than evident in our country. Look at how this is an old graph, of course, but look at how in many countries you have geographical information education. In Mexico, well, really not many schools do, so there's a lot of work to do. And at that time we did a very interesting work on training. We gave so many seminars on geospatial information, remote information, etc. And this is one of the things that we need to still work on. We have a human capital that is important, but we need to work on strategy and direction management of projects. And the implementation of geospatial technology or open source is important. This is something that we did with the licensing, DRB 3.2 at that time. All the educational infrastructure in Quintana Roo was worked with this license. And for over 10 years now, we have started developing methodologies to work with open source software. It was more than clear that we needed that. I'm not saying that technology like Intergraph is not appropriate. It is good, but municipalities and institutions do not have the resources to acquire licensings that cost thousands of USD. And we have this opportunity today. We have a broad array of for instance, map service, PostGIS, etc. And with this, I believe we can do many great things. Collaborative work, geospatial collaborative work, well, this is an example of something that we did or we have been doing for over 10 years, and thanks to this type of servers, we were able to share a lot of information, aerial photographs, servers applied to the population, and I supported the processes of adoption and development of geospatial technology for Media's cadastre. It was a very interesting project because it's one of the few where the information from every land is published. And I believe that this is something critical, support to innovation and development and geospatial development and innovation. We need to localize, colleagues. And since 2011, we started a whole processes of innovation, development, and implementation of this technology, unmanned drones. It was very expensive. It was very difficult for us to understand that we should use technology wise. We should not think about how long the battery is used, why these drones do not have these positioning elements, etc., etc. I think that this is urgent. We need to say it doesn't matter the type of unmanned drone. We need this. We need images that are very up to date to see if someone is in danger regarding floodings next to the rivers, etc. To use drones to monitor the growth of cities and to locate lands in in areas that are difficult to access and that represent risk for the cadastre, even for urban development. There is a website that you can visit, http www.photograph.cd.com. This is something that we have been doing for several years now, that has become a chain of production. And this represents, of course, an opportunity. These are real examples of some of the images that we have been able to take. We have taken more than 500 assignments. We have had the opportunity of acquiring hundreds of thousands of images with these characteristics. For instance, to fly over some of the ravines and realize, or cliffs. If you know anything about interpretation, well, you know what that means. We want to thank the participation of our three speakers that were that gave a great presentation. Now we open the floor for questions and answers. If you have any question, please bring your paper forward so that the speaker can respond to your questions. Good afternoon. My question is to you. What do you think is the main problem in our country, the small support of the contribution of the government to the scientific research? Do you think that's the main problem? Your question actually is very complex. I don't think that, well, maybe something that we need in the geospatial industries to adopt. I think there are many elements available, and for instance, what I was saying, we are one of the few countries that have satellites, passive and active satellites images in high resolution and medium resolution. In Chetumal, we have a reception workstation, and I believe that it's just about generating synergies and defining strategies and projects that would definitely solve the problems at a local and regional level, and I believe that we have all the elements available out there, but we need to organize them. Is there any other question? Thank you. Good afternoon. I was listening to many conferences today, and I think that maybe you do not represent INEGI, which is the national institution that is in charge of organizing and working with this type of data and information. So what would be the actions at a municipal level? I see that there is this need of an institution that is strong, that would be leading, and that would be reproducing things, programs. For instance, the program in Spain that was presented a while ago. I maybe take some of the interesting things on management and integration this thing about the interoperability of information. So what are the three actions that are urgent and that I know that this Congress is important, but what would be the three steps that INEGI would have to make? And that question is for each and every speaker. I believe that INEGI is taking very important steps. They are working very hard on policy and access of geospatial information, and not only access, but of course the use, distribution, dissemination, etc. Kevin's presentation, there was a very interesting pyramid where you have to interrelate the different elements: government, of course the players, which are the users of data, and entities from the private sectors, NGOs, etc. If we build up all these elements with a common objective, which I believe is one of the most important things that we have heard today, to implement geospatial technology for the resolution of problems, for sustainable development. Of course, this is a process, and Mexico, well, is a little bit lagging behind with in technology, etc. Everything is polarized. Sometimes if you go to certain regions, I just came back from some regions in Mexico where I see that there is practically no computers, no internet access. So, but I believe that we have to do this little by little. Someone else? Good afternoon, yes. The policies on geospatial information access are similar to those who are implemented internationally. I see that sometimes it works very well when you create some legislations or bills and where you meet these policies, but what happens in places where there isn't a legislation or a standard and every institution creates its own access policies but really does not share that geospatial information? What do you do then? How do you deal with this problem? I'm not really sure I understood your question. Could you be more objective? Well, there are countries where some laws have been implemented and the policies of access to information have really worked, but in places where there isn't really this legal framework, where there aren't this legislation or laws or bills, every institution generates its own policies, but then you do not share information, which finally you want to do that. I think there is an exception. Canada doesn't have a legal framework, but everything works very well over there. We just did a study with the countries that had legal frameworks, and we did a comparison with these countries, and we compared these countries to those countries that do not have legal frameworks, and our conclusions were, analyzing collection and dissemination of information, we realized that those countries that have do not have legal frameworks have resolved a lot more problems. I think each country should decide what better works for them in the use and dissemination of information. The studies demonstrate that when you have a legal framework, nothing really, that doesn't necessarily means that everything is going to work perfectly. One last question. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we want to thank you for your attention